What chance does a privateer have?
Welcome to Supercross.
What do you say to a factory ride?
Welcome back, subscribers. This is Johnny F. and Hopper, and I got two very special guests with me. I got the mad scientist, Coach Rob Beams, and then I also have the gorilla, Chris Cooksey. So we're going to talk about our top three picks in the 450s. We're going to piss people off with our biggest disappointment. We're going to go to best standout, and then we might talk a little bit about some teams and maybe get into some of the 250s because nobody knows what the fuck's going on with the 250s because they don't release any information, but we'll kind of go in there. So since I got you guys as guests, let's just start off with our number three pick on the 450s. So Rob, you're analytical. Who is your top three in the 450s for 2022?
Wait. You said top three and then you said third. Are we going all three at one time?
Nope. Let's just start with the third.
Okay.
Excuse me. Let's go with the third.
Well, in number three this year, I'm looking at Chase Sexton, number three. He's we know he's got raw talent. We know he's got ridiculous smooth technique. There's been a lot of turmoil in his camp over this last year. Obviously the verdict is out. Is it going to be good changes or bad changes? I know that Jay Dungy is probably one of the most level-headed mechanics, and for them not to be able to get along and for Jay to feel the need to move on, not that he went anywhere bad. I mean, he ended up landing with Plessinger, so that's not a bad thing. But I have Chase there. He's parted ways with James for, whatever reason. I mean, yes, I've listened to Jace over Gypsy Tales. We've all heard supposedly why Chase isn't there. I just find it interesting that Chase is. Go ahead.
Can you refresh me on that?
Yeah, essentially what Chase said was that James is so naturally talented, he can't explain what he does. And I'm just paraphrasing what Chase said. This is no epiphany for anybody. He says that himself, Chase, is a naturally talented rider. He does things that he can't articulate. James does things that nobody can understand nor articulate. And because of that, they decide to go their separate directions.
So funny. Have I not been saying that forever? Some of the best coaches are not necessarily the best riders.
Absolutely. And then, but for there to be a new mechanic for Chase and there to be a new trainer for him and all things included, I think Chase has the ability to win. Obviously, he's got his second year here of trying to prove himself. I think the Honda 450 camp is a little bit tumultuous right now. I think you've got Roxon. He's been paid a lot of money, hasn't delivered. I know there's got to be a tremendous amount of pressure that's there. If you listen again to Chase over at Gypsy Tales, he's talking about he didn't feel like he got the attention that he deserved. I have a little bit of a problem with that. But then a lot of changes in Sexton's camp, so that's why I've got him at third. Lots of talent, lots of adjustments, and we can't forget that Jet is on a fast track to the 450 camp, and that's got to be resonating with Chase at some level. He desperately wants to be the top dog at Honda, and he may end up getting usurped by Jet. If Roxon decides to tap out, Jet moves in. Sexton could almost be like a moose can, never gets to that top rung. So we'll see.
Digressing a little bit, do the pro guys, the top guys, do they have to pay their mechanics? Is that the team? Do you guys know?
I believe it's a team, but there's an unwritten rule you're supposed to tip them out. Not everyone does.
Like bonuses, etc. ish.
Yeah.
I heard of one mechanic, I think it was Eli, who just gave his prize money, which we all know isn't that much, but all his prize money would go to the mechanic. There's my dog in the background there.
Such a cool dog.
Love that dog.
No, well, some of that price, you mean like all the purse money for winning a race or something?
Yeah, I laugh when you say all the purse money.
$1,300 for the win.
Sure.
Okay, true. But I mean, for a weekend for a mechanic, right. I would say that would be fairly decent. But the bonus structure, that's pennies if you're thinking their contracts are saying, hey, it's going to be 200, 300 grand to win a race. Then you give the mechanic $13,000. Yeah. That's kind of a bummer. Chris, what do you think about Sexton?
He looks really big. I find it funny that he talks about how PEDs won't help. It's always strange to me when somebody says that, because that's usually the guy who uses PEDs is the guy who says that. I don't give a shit. I'm on record saying I don't give a shit. But right now, since I'm recovering from COVID, the Steel City Men's Clinic has me on a cocktail of PEDs, essentially, but they're being used for what they're supposed to be used for, not performance enhancing. And I will say, there's no doubt in my mind they would absolutely help. And I'll go back to the argument I used with Alden Baker. He said, well, it won't help. I said, well, why do you even train your guys then if it won't help? If you can increase 3 to 6% on top of an already fit athlete, that's the separation between first and 10th, especially right now.
This makes too much sense. It makes too much sense.
It does. So, but no, Sexton's going to be tough, and he could easily get in there, shake it up, win some races. God, but there's 9 guys I have that could win races this year. It's scary.
It's super, super stacked. For me, Sexton, I think he has the speed to win, but I think when you get in the middle of, Barsha, AC, all these guys coming up, even Dylan in there, I think he's going to make a big mistake. I think we're going to see a lot of guys crash. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot of crashing going on. And like always, at the end of the season, there's going to be 3 or 4 guys that have established themselves. And I think Sexton might be injured.
Ooh,
okay.
That's tough. That's a bad hex there, Johnny.
No, I'm not trying to just. I think he's going to push really hard, and he's going to miss a race or two. Either that, or
history
somebody
shows that. Yeah.
Either that, or somebody's going to get COVID, especially one of the top guys, and then they're going to. It's going to ruin the whole season for him because they're not going to make any points. But who's your third? Oh no, Rob wants to say something about that.
You just mentioned something. Who's going to be testing the COVID? That's my question. Because we have tons of situations where we get into the semantic game that we're testing for PEDs. Then we get into the semantics games. Did we test? Yes, we tested. Did we have the tests? Did we get the samples evaluated? That was never articulated. It's never any of our business. But they can say they tested. Now we have MX Sports saying in the Outdoor Nationals that they're now going to be judge and jury of testing and the administration of penalties. But what seems to get lost in the middle is you have the test. If a test comes back positive, let's say the samples are actually evaluated, is a promoter going to take 1, 2, or 3 of the top guys that fail a test and actually punish them by taking them out when they're the ones that are filling this selling tickets, filling the stadiums, and filling the sides of the track? That's another subject for another day. But what about this COVID test? We saw some writings this past week that, hey, COVID is probably going to disrupt the results of the Supercross series. That's an interesting comment. Who's going to be testing? Who's going to say, oh yes, Johnny Hopper, you tested positive, you got to go home? We saw Marv this year. He tested positive, but I don't know when we get into, like you say, Johnny, we've got a points race going on, and your points leader, top 3 guy, we're in a 2-point battle. One of the guys tests positive. Is it actually going to be, you need to go home?
All right,
that is going to be very interesting.
Coach, I would bet my truck that 1 or 2 guys raced with COVID last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the conspiracy theorist that I am, if I'm a team manager or something, if I knew that and I knew somebody was trying to hide it, you would try to get them almost disqualified, just not disqualified, but have them go through the rules, exposed. Mm-hmm. So, because that kind of happened in the Outdoor Nationals, the whole Marv kind of thing. And, the KTM team, it seemed like something was going on and nobody really wanted to talk about it. And then it's interesting that Marv is on Supercross only. But anyway, we could talk all sorts more about conspiracy theories.
But your point's well taken, though, Johnny. I mean, if we can get some clarity on how the COVID tests are going to be administered and implemented, that would set the tone to what you were saying, that we may see the influence of COVID. I don't know if you run the statistical odds of everything, when a team does, it is such a tight-knit community. If one of those, when I say those, truck driver, mechanic, team manager, rider, all the above, what do? Do you just completely dismiss that entire team? Of course
You're
not.
probably supposed to by the CDC guidelines as far as just everyone.
Their guidelines are as bad as MX Sports guidelines. Oh boy.
Yeah, I wiped my ass with my COVID test, and I have COVID. No,
Well,
okay, sorry.
And we're getting enough statistics now that you're getting false positives. You're getting those kinds of things as well.
Yeah.
And I'm still interested to see who's going to be administering the test, and when the results come back, what's that communication channel look like? And ultimately the decision, you get to race or not race. So I didn't mean to create a bunny trail there, but when you mentioned the COVID, I think there's been a couple innuendos that have been placed out there like, oh, it's definitely going to change it up. Almost like there's a little projecting of what may happen in the future. I just thought it was pretty interesting text.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a premonition type
That's
scenario.
the word I was looking for. Thank you.
So do I get to go with my third?
Well, I wanted to say one last thing. It's just we're talking about the politics of racing. Like all the team managers and everybody, they're going to expose or try to, everyone wants to think that there's no politics going on in racing, but that's kind of some of the people on the team, they get paid to be like, hey, that guy's cheating. Hey, we got to just go tear that guy down. Hey, that guy's doing illegal fuel, blah, 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 whatever. So, Chris,
Ronnie's on PEDs.
Yeah. What's your third, dude? What's your third?
Okay. It was brutal to get the third place guy. I mean, I looked at Barsha, Muskin, Anderson, Cincerello, Roxon. Look at all these guys. But I went with Dylan Ferrandis.
Ooh.
He's the reigning outdoor champ. I believe he's good at Supercross, and he can get up there. I think he's going to win races and contend for this title. I don't know if he has what it takes in the end to compete with my 1 and 2, but he's gonna make it interesting. And having Tomac on that team so he's going to know right where he is going into the season. There's no guessing. He's going to be right with the top guy. I'm going to go with Dylan Ferrandis.
I disagree entirely, but that's okay. We will see what happens.
You hate Yamaha so bad that you would.
No, dude. My brother-in-law, I actually convinced him to go buy a Yamaha, and he loves that bike.
Is that do you not like him? Were you trying to make fun of him?
No, not at all. No. I do wish that like their factory edition or so-called Monster Energy edition. I'm like, come on, guys, can we at least build a bike that has like strong wheels on it? Like come with these soft ass rims, and I mean at least like, and then a full exhaust. I think all these factory edition things, they should just have one big step above to where it's everything on it is kind of race ready. Like just go have a privateer talk about what they would do to a bike, and then that should be the factory edition. Just boom, boom, boom. Even if it's $15,000, just do that. People would buy it. Race ready. Nee. I'm digressing.
It's so good off the showroom. You can't make it better, Johnny. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you can. You could like.
I'm kidding.
It sounds like obviously. A weed whacker.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
It does. It totally sounds like a weed whacker. So my third is going to be Ken Roxon. It's probably a surprise for everybody. I think he's going to go out the whole season. I'm conflicted on whether or not he's going to be able to still be 100% come the later rounds, but I think he's old enough and mature enough to where he's not going to put himself on the ground. And so a lot of people are going to shuffle in there. I think he will fight for wins, but I think there's so many good people right now that he's just going to be that second to fifth place guy, maybe even inside the top 10, but just collectively overall, I think he's going to get third. I mean, I really, really wanted him to win, but looking at some of the people that are racing this year, because this is an amazing year, I have to put him in this third, unfortunately, but I still think he's the top Honda guy over there.
But Johnny, look at his history. The last couple of years, he's had the series lead, looked like he was going to win last year. He always has the same issue, and I don't see that getting better with age.
Well, and then
that's why he's not winning.
Well, and then add another dynamic to that. How many years has he been in the 450, or excuse me, on the Honda in the 450 class? Is this year 3 or is this year 4 we're going into? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Let's see. Dungey won 17 was his first year.
Okay. So think about the amount of pressure that's on him. It's this year, it's do or die. There's still
we said that last year though, too.
I was going to say, I thought we said that last year, and this year is like bonus do or die.
Well, but I think the
Yeah.
difference is in his defense, he came out, won the first, 3, 4 rounds, he had a solid points lead. Looked like he was going to be able to pull the car into the garage this year, and then little chink, little chink, little chink, and then it just cascaded the wrong direction. So, yeah, he proved a lot of the naysayers, including myself, wrong last year, even including going and racing outdoors. I didn't think we'd see it. But I think the pressure is mounted to a level now, and you've got Sexton that wants to prove that he should be the top guy there. He's been very vocal, being disappointed that he didn't feel as if he got enough attention last year, whether that's in research and development or whatever it may be. But I agree with Johnny on that. I think Roxon's consistency on starts, and he knows how to manage a series. I don't think it's unrealistic to put him in the top three. I don't have him in the top three, by the way.
Just a side note, is Cooper Webb still going to own him?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's the Dungy, and then God, why am I? He's just getting in his head. He's just getting in his head. Lawrence, exactly. I can't believe.
But he's done it for a whole
spaced that.
career, not necessarily one season. Lawrence got away with it one season. Dungy got it together. He has owned Roxon ever since I remember. It's ugly.
Yeah, it's
really
definitely been a feud.
I would call it a feud, a rivalry, but it's so one-sided. It's just a beatdown.
Yeah, but you always have to have faith in the little guy. It's not the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight in the dog. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think Kenny is that he's respectable. I mean, Webb is a respectable dude too, but I don't necessarily think that Webb would be like the best guy to have a beer with. Where Kenny seems like he'd be a good guy to go do that with. Unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of guys that are over 30 that we are watching the end of their careers, because if they don't own up, you're talking these guys that have been the prodigies of the whole motorsport in motocross and supercross pretty much their entire careers. And if they're not finishing and not winning, they're like, why should I even be putting my body and risking all this stuff? What's the point? So I think there's a lot of guys like Tomac, Marvin, Kenny. There's a lot of guys that are like, we want to talk about like shit or get off the pot. I think there's a lot of guys, I've said that 8 times, that could be retiring next year or the year after at, I think, the latest. But
Hey, Johnny, on that thread of thought, there's one little extra thing to think about. And that last statement that you just made is the big key. You look at the age of the guys and look who's going to be eligible next year for a 450 ride. Colt Nichols, Cooper, Craig, Martin, and Faulkner. They have to come out of the 250 class this year. So not only do you have that pressure within a team dynamic, team color, you've got 5 guys that want it really, really bad. And I think it's interesting that you bring up the fact that Sexton may put himself on the ground a lot, trying to over push. He was on Jace's show saying that he's learned to tame it down a little bit, but to try to be that top dog on the team, on HRC, knowing that there's 5 guys coming in. I'm not saying that you're going to have one of those 5 guys that's just going to come in and walk over Roxon, but we know that Jeremy Martin was on a fast track to get where Sexton's at right now. And to your point, 31, 32 years old, back end, a huge onslaught of deep talent getting ready to come in. It's going to put a lot of pressure on that whole 450 musical chairs. I agree.
I would disagree with that, Coach. I think all 5 of those guys I would have Roxon over any of those dudes. I don't think those.
I'm with Cooksey. I'm with Cooksey on that. I think it's happening, but we're not quite there yet. I would give Kenny another year to try to perform above all those guys. I think there's going to be a lot of guys that don't have a job, is really what I think, which is so sad. Yeah. But I think that's what's happening. Sorry.
No,
Cooksey,
unless Jet goes Supercross and outdoors again and goes 450, I stay with Roxon if he wants to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I honestly, I agree. But I think the next year there's so much more other people coming up to where you're like, okay, now you're 32, 33, like,
But think about this though. I don't know how much Roxon's made. What's his base salary? 2.5 million. He's been there for 3 to 4 years. So let's just round that up to $10 million and no championship. That's where I think Honda's looking at it going, we've tried. I agree with you, Chris. talent wise, Roxon is there, but it's at what point do you finally just cut your losses and go, okay, we move Sexton up, we bring Jet in as the new kid, we have Sexton with a couple of years maturity. That's one reason why I'm saying these 250 guys, because you got to remember, a lot of these guys, their contracts are up this year. Ferrandis's will be up. Tomac's got a 1-year deal with an option for renewal. So that changes the dynamics. Do people go sideways? Do they just step out? There's a lot going on in the 450 class this year, pressure-wise. Not any more than usual, I guess.
Johnny, go ahead.
I just
I was digressing. I had a point and I forgot what I was going to say.
all right. Well, let's just move on to number 2, Rob. What is your number 2 for Supercross 2022?
This is the fight in the dog. I'm going with Mr. Cooper Webb for number 2.
Wow.
Mr. Cooper Webb for number 2. We've said it every time we've been on together. Cooper knows how to manage a long season. I think in his amateur days racing against AC, learning how to handle defeat, he's gone out of his way, very, very similar to what Villopoto did to learn how to eventually beat Alessi. I think there's a sense of maturity with Webb. Obviously, he's got the championships that backs it up on 250s, now on 450s. How do you vote against him? And yes, I don't have him as the number 1 guy, and I'll explain why here in a second. But yeah, I have Webb second. I think he's going to obviously be very, very difficult to beat. He's always got that chip on his shoulder, and he's been very vocal that he'll never lose that chip on his shoulder. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see.
So you don't think he'll lose that, even leaving, the Baker factory, or is leaving the Baker factory adding to that chip?
Leaving the Baker's factory is going to make Cooper stronger than ever because he's going to be way fresher than he's ever been. I think you're going to see an elevation of Cooper Webb, but I also think there's somebody else that's going to elevate above what Cooper's able to do this year. But I think Cooper's going to be better this year now that he's away from Alden. And it's interesting that Marv is now under Villeman. He's gone away from the Baker's factory. You have Webb that's gone over working with Berner. And now I just think you're going to see a complete revitalized Cooper, which is going to be hard to beat. But I think there's one guy that's going to be capable of doing it.
Well, and I think the guy you're probably talking about is the guy that I have at number 2, Eli Tomac, because he's riding the Weed Whacker. It's such a good bike. And Dylan has proved that bike works. He's going into a program where they're catering to him. He was kind of almost burnt out of Kawasaki. And I think they were tired of hearing him make excuses and complaints about
Was he burnt out of Kawasaki, or is he burnt out of the sport?
Kawasaki. Because he took less money. If you're burned out on the sport, just leave. He's got money. Money's not a motivating factor, in my opinion, for Tomac.
Tomac, yeah.
So what a motivated Eli is scary. Right now, he really wants to show Kawasaki and everybody he's still got it. So that's why he's going to be right there and easily could win this thing. I have him at number 2, but if he goes number 1, like if I was doing betting odds, I would go like plus 300, plus 310. It's that close for first and second. And a lot of it's going to come down to chance and maybe COVID. Who knows?
Yeah, you definitely need a little bit of luck. So I am with Coach on this one. I think Cooper, I really would like to see him win because
Johnny, you just gave me a whole speech about the dog and the fight, and you're going to put Cooper second? Are you kidding me?
Yes. I'm going to put Cooper second. I'm going to put maybe there's a little bit of, irony or whatever in there.
Hypocrisy?
Potentially. Chris, it's lucky that I've been working out, man. It's luckily we're not sitting right next to each other.
Whip my ass right now. If it goes past 30 seconds, I can't breathe, so we're good.
I know I'm faster than you, so I just have to run away and
yeah, that's fair.
So I don't think he's going to win many races because I think he's definitely not going to be the fastest guy, but I think his racecraft is going to show forth, and he's going to do what he does best, is kind of get in people's head and then be opportunistic when shit happens, whether it's somebody's down with COVID or somebody gets injured. And I think at the end of the deal, the points, he's gonna be there. And personally, he won 2 years ago if he didn't have that little wheel tap incident and, didn't make any points that weekend either. So this is kind of a shitty quote, but you never contend with a man that has nothing to lose. And him being the championship, you feel like he's got everything to lose. But I think Cooper is almost feeling as if he's got nothing to lose because he's already had everything. So if it's gone, it's gone. He's been second place before. He's out to be the best. And this was a tough one for me because I really, really wanted to put him at number one, just because, like I said, there's so many good people there, but it's not just about how fast you are and what you can do on the bike. It's about all the little things throughout the whole season. And I think he's got the best head, however you want to interpret that, but that's what I'm going with.
Johnny, you said something in there that caught my attention. You said he's not going to be the fastest guy. He's always, when the track breaks down and you have to think out there, he's always the fastest at the end of the night. Yeah, the first of the night when it's all good, he's not the guy usually, but when it breaks down, he's always got speed. If you check the lap times, a lot of the end of those Supercrosses, he's the fastest guy.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going more in the definition of just hero lap type speed.
Times qualifying when it's good.
Yeah, like first 2 laps, boom. Okay. You've got guys like I think Sexton, AC, and I think Dylan are going to be those 3 guys that have got the sheer raw speed. But the question is, can they last the whole 20 laps? And that's why I have them as second, is because Webb, just like what you said, just to confirm what I'm thinking, is he's going to be there at the end, but if you don't have that 2-3 second speed right at the burst of it, because these are long main events, sometimes 25 minutes, it's going to be hard to catch up. So even if you are the fastest guy at the end, well, once the rabbit gets away, the tortoise will catch up eventually.
Johnny, you watched the last couple seasons, right? When Roxon was the rabbit and he'd always get caught by the tortoise, which you're calling Cooper. I know, but
I'm trying to just give some analogies here, and you're making me feel like an idiot, which potentially I can be sometimes, dude. I don't think he's there right at the beginning. Webb will win the series if he can hang the first 5 laps. If he can hang the first 5-ish laps with everybody out front, then I definitely think that he will win the series. I still have him as second because I don't think that's going to happen, but that's just my 2 cents.
For Eli to beat him, he's going to have to get starts, because Webb's getting starts. So how is he going to fall that far behind when he's getting the starts every week?
I like how you're going about this, as devil's advocate here. I have him as second. Okay. I just have him as second. We'll see.
I know. I'm acting like you got him at 9th or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I got him at second as well. I'm with you, Jay.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
I think he will get lucky and win a couple races, but that's what he does every year. Yes, Chris, he gets lucky. He makes things happen. He takes advantage of.
Ask Ken Roxon if that's luck.
What I'm saying is, with luck, dude, is he's opportunistic. When he sees an opening, he takes it. It's lucky that there's an opportunity to be had, whether it's put somebody over the tough blocks or run way on the inside of him. He takes that stuff. He makes it happen.
He's lucky he makes his own opportunities. What are you trying to say here, Johnny?
I'm saying in order to win races this year, you're going to have the speed. You're going to have to be lucky. And yeah, truthfully, I do think he's been lucky some of the times, that I think any almost champion sometimes, man. I agree.
I agree with that. You have to have luck to win this series. And I think I even said that, like, you have to have luck.
Yeah. Yeah. So it almost is making it sound like you have him as number 1 is how you're fighting. Is you're
possibly.
Let's just move on, and then maybe I will try to give you shit about your number 1 pick. Okay, well, we're just jumping ahead real quick. Cooksey, who's your number 1?
Well, I'm going to go with Malcolm Stewart. No, I'm just kidding. Cooper Webb, of course.
See, exactly.
Yeah, Cooper Webb, because he's tough.
Because he's not lucky. He's not tough. He's going to be the fastest guy there. Like, hold on. Nobody else should race. He's just going to win, kick everyone's ass, get everyone in his head. Like, why bother, right?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on, Rob. Go, Chris.
He's tough as nails. He's proven that the moment's not too big for him. When the moment gets bigger, he does better. If the race doesn't mean anything, he rides around in 5th. If it's something where he's going to win the championship, you're going to get your A game with Cooper Webb. That's it. And look, he's literally destroyed Ken Roczen's psyche. Ken is the most talented, beautiful rider on a dirt bike out there. When he takes off those first 5 laps, if that's all you watched, you'd think for sure he won almost every race last year. But then if you flip it on the last 5, you'd be like, wow, that dude in second is such a badass. Like you said, fortunately, these races are almost 25 minutes. It's going to give him time to be consistent, watch how the track breaks down, figure stuff out. I haven't seen a rider. And another thing with his starts, the thing that Cooper Webb does that absolutely blows me away, he's the only rider that looks like he has eyes in the back of his head. There'll be a section where they'll go 2-1 or do some weird rhythm that he wasn't doing. They do it behind him. And the next lap, like he does it. I don't know how he senses what they did, but he does. Have you noticed that at all?
Yeah, no, he definitely just goes for it, and he lives in the moment, and he makes stuff happen. That's where I go with that whole thing, is like what you're talking about is him making the quad or doing the little triple section and all the real rough stuff that nobody does. Typically, most guys would take the whole time qualifying practice in order to jump something like that, and he just clicks it off. And that's where I'm going with that quote, is you never contend with a man that has nothing to lose. Sometimes when he rides out there, he rides as if he's got nothing to lose, and that's why it's so exciting. But that might catch up to him. And your defense on Kenny, I think Kenny's got almost better people around him than Webb does. I think the whole KTM infrastructure, they were the team to beat. They were definitely the team to beat. I think it's transferred more of the Yamaha side of where their whole program is. And I think truthfully, I think Kenny's got some better people on his side that he's probably implemented, as far as maybe somebody like Coach Rob, who's not only training as far as physical, but he's almost like a mentor type deal. I don't think we're going to see as much of Kenny and Webb. There's so many riders this year. I think it's going to be interesting if we find them on the track together in multiple moments rather than one or two, because there's so many good guys in here.
I'll bet you we see it quite a bit. For whatever reason, they're magnets. That's the way. Either they manifest it, they think about it, whatever they do, they always wind up together. Even if they're in 5th and 6th, they're going to find each other on the track.
That's good for the sport. I like drama. That's good for the sport. We need more drama. So,
well, and there's the whole backstory to it with,
there's been a lot of stuff happening.
Webb marrying Roczen's ex-girlfriend, and then Roczen's wife after Daytona or Atlanta yelling at Webb. Like, there's a lot to go with that story that nobody shares. So sorry, I don't want to take all your time, Coach.
No, it's all good.
He's been patient. Yeah.
No, I think the listeners need to know about those backstories, because if you go back, obviously we know the end result of Roczen getting his arm torn up, and we know all of what he's been through. I think the listeners deserve to know the back without, we're muddling into someone's personal business. Well, I thought Instagram was a public environment for everybody to go and look. All we're trying to do is create clarity as to why would there be such an immediate retaliation when it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal on the opening lap, 2 turns in. Why would you go in so bonsai? Well, there's history behind it. Whether you want to call it catty, immature, whatever you want to declare it, doesn't matter. There's a story behind it, and the listeners deserve to know what that story is. The hard part about it is, here we sit 3 years later, Ken Roczen may have been the best that never was, with the exception with the RCH that 1 year. It's the only title that he got. Does that mean that's all he's capable of? No. He spent a lot of time in rehab with that arm, and obviously that gnarly wreck where he ripped his feet off the pegs and yard darted himself. That, there's a lot. He's overcome a tremendous amount. Then you look at, was it Lyme disease? Was it Epstein-Barr? Was it all these fatigue-related issues? Then seem to get that worked out, and then get to the second half of the season, start hearing that he's tired again. And again, with a sport that never is transparent on what's going on. Again, I don't need to know the intimate details, but as we've all said, there's not a podcast out there that hasn't talked about it. If you look at Formula One and you look at all these other sports, they don't hide the information. For whatever reason, they see it differently than we do. So we could do a whole show on just the psyche of telling the truth.
Because they make more money at it. Yeah.
Good point.
By sharing it.
Yep. Exactly.
And time is just so finite, especially in the sport, because the sport seems like your career is wrapped up into maybe 5-10 years. So you have a very small amount of time to make something happen. And in a switch, it's kind of over with, whether it's a catastrophic injury or something, because I'm totally with you. If he didn't have that injury, he was pretty much owning everybody. And we could have seen a Ricky Carmichael, Jeremy McGrath type run on Supercross, where when you just build up in your head that you're the man, that you pretty much stay the man. Same thing that happened to Stewart. As soon as Stewart was like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm going to take some time off. Well, then you got a guy like Dungy show up that's like, hey, you're not the man anymore because I don't even know who the hell you are. And it almost makes it human again. And we've seen Roczen become human. Did you say who your first was yet, Rob, or no?
Not yet. Nope. Well,
Okay,
and to your
let's
thread
go
of
with
thought
that.
right there, talking about the time warp. If you follow me on Instagram, I posted the neck brace that AC gave me
Mhm,
at
I saw
Loretta's,
that.
right? And that was a neck brace that he wore when he was racing against Cooper Webb. That's over 15 years ago. And yet we remember seeing Deegan rip on an 85 3 years ago with Daxton Bennett, Logan Best, Casey Cochran. And now look at him. He's on a 250 program training at the goat farm. Time warp. It happens so fast. Like you said, it before we know it, Roxon's out and the new heir apparent is in. It never slows down. If anything, it seems like it only gets faster. And
Mhm.
like it's been a long 3 years for Ken Roxon, but I don't know that we'll ever see what he was truly capable of because of what he's been through.
And little digression, that's why, Chris, I've been so much on, hey, the PEDs kind of need to be exposed, because when you have such a small time like that, people will make kind of fucked up decisions because, you either make it now or later on you wish coulda, woulda, shoulda type shit, because there's not time to sit here and be like, oh, I'm going to try this and come back, or I'm going to try this. It's just boom. How do you accelerate everything? And what do PEDs do? They accelerate everything. You still put in the work, your body can just take so much more torture and recover that much faster that you're almost stuck in a little bit of a time warp just right there. So anyway, Rob, who is your number one? Because it's probably not going to piss me off like Cooksey can with we're fighting over 1 and 2 here.
That's okay. My number one guy is going to be Ferrandis in the 450 class this year.
Wow.
I look at
Frenchman.
Ferrandis. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying it's because of DV, right?
Well, I think it's DV. I think it's a bike that he's familiar with. If you look at the top three guys, Ferrandis is the one who has the least amount of changes. Now I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here because I said with Webb going to Burner, leaving Baker's factory, etc. I think that's going to help Webb because of the fatigue factor. I see a lot of the mistakes that these riders are making, and doing this for 38 years, when you see fundamental mistakes, usually that's excessive amounts of fatigue, caloric restriction, unstable blood sugar levels. The timing is off just ever so slightly. And at this elite level, yes, sometimes the finite line is the difference between success and failure. The injury rate, if you look at the accidents, some of them just don't justify the magnitude of the broken bones. So you've got caloric restriction, brittle bones, low blood sugar. Everything just seems to be going the wrong direction. That's why I think Webb's going to look better this year. Ferrandis is the only one who's retained the same trainer, DV, on the same bike. Yes, they moved from California to the goat farm. That's not a huge deal, big difference there. Like you were saying earlier about Roczen having such a solid team around him. Ferrandis has the most consistent team for the last 2 to 3 years. And if you look at the progression, 250 champion goes into 450 class, has shown his program is solid all the way around. And for that reason is the only reason why I have him as number one. Webb has a lot of changes going on. Sexton has a lot of changes. Plessinger has a lot of changes. Macklem's got a lot of changes. AC, I don't know that he's 100% healthy. Jason Anderson has a lot of changes. Ferrandis is the only one that has the most consistent program moving into 22.
Wow. Well, Rob, I'm going to just say great minds think alike, because Cooksey, I'm picking Dylan for number one too.
Hold on. Where did you guys have Tomac? Not in the top three?
I do not have Tomac in the top three.
Nope, I don't either.
You guys are crazy.
No,
Yeah,
no.
I would agree.
We will see.
Yeah.
We will
But
see.
then
We
again,
will
one through,
see.
like I said, I got 9 guys can win races, so it
Yeah,
could go
Absolutely.
anywhere.
Absolutely.
I never
But
said
Johnny-
Tomac wasn't going to win races. I think he's going to win races. I do think he's going to win races.
Are you
I just think it's
infatuated
going to be.
with Yamahas, Johnny? Because you're just turning on me. You got your friend, was your cousin to buy one, and now you're picking like Ferrandis. Like, are you trying to
Dude,
make up for all the shit you talk?
I'm a trend follower, and when the trend is just hauling fucking ass, you just hop on board. They mix ass. They okay. Probably
Mix
won't say any
gas.
more.
Mix
than
ass? Elaborate.
No,
It's a good
I'm
bumper
mixing
sticker.
gas. I said gas. It
I
might
thought you
have
said
sound
mix an
like-
ass.
You did, but
Mix
that's
ass.
okay. We'll
Okay.
move on.
Yeah.
It's on recording.
I could have swore I said gas.
Yeah,
did,
that'll,
but
that'll be
that's
my
okay.
clip. Johnny, mix an ass.
Mixing ass and drinking gas. Nobody rides for free.
That's pretty much what happened. So
Ass, grass, or cash.
the Frenchman, he's on a roll. He's older, so therefore he's mature. So he's not going to make as silly mistakes as I think AC and Sexton are. He's on the best team, and his ego is pumping. He's coming off of he won in Supercross before. Then he went to outdoors, kicked ass in outdoors, proved that he can beat all these guys. He's moving in, going, hey, I'm going to continue to beat these guys. And I don't know what's happening at the practice track, but I'm assuming that Dylan is probably the faster of the two riders between him and Tomac over there.
Well, take it a
And-
step further as well, Johnny. We've heard so much about why Tomac went over to Star Yamaha. Suspension, right? The number one guy went over there. So if that additional information gets funneled through the team, which I think it is, I don't think that's information that's only privy to Tomac. You got that additional factor plus DV plus familiarity with the bike, on and on and on it goes. And stealing a line from Jeff Emig, I'd much rather take momentum than a points lead. And I think Ferrandis has that momentum coming in 22.
Exactly. And he has been the top guy on Yamaha. So you're not going to have a guy like Tomac just come in and you're going to be like, okay, here's the captain cap, Tomac, here you go. Everyone's going to give you all this stuff. No, he's going to be like, hey, dude, I'm just new to the 450 class. You've had your shot. You've won championships. I'm more hungry than you. I'm going to continue hogging all the resources, and everyone unconsciously is going to be thinking like, hey, Dylan's our best shot to win. That's all just adding up to that momentum thing. I think the first couple rounds of Supercross are going to be so pivotal because there's so many people on teams that are fighting over, hey, where are we putting our resources? Where is everybody really going to say this is our number one guy? And for that reason, I think Dylan is going to deliver. He's new to the 450 class. He's got, even though his age is a little, how old is he? He's 28,
28, 29, I believe.
Yeah. So there's a different turning of the guard, I would say, to where because you had Stewart, you had Dungey, you had Carmichael, they all retired at 25, 26. Well, now all the real fast guys are damn near over 30, but he's on the younger side of all those guys with Brayton, Marv, Tomac, Kenny, everybody. And I just think that we're going to see a dude I think he's going to win the most races. I think his worst races are still going to be fifth. I'm just going Dylan all the way.
So
Go ahead, Chris. Go
you
ahead.
mentioned age. I thought Tomac was the same age as Dylan. He's not 30.
I don't know what.
I don't think he is. So
Okay, well, there's a
But we-
difference
we- but we-
between age and just
mileage.
exactly. There
Yes,
you
and
go.
I get that.
Using-
Tomac's got a lot more mileage on him, but he hasn't had a lot of major injuries. And I think you're crazy that they're
Yeah,
going to
he's
give
29. He's
more. Yeah, I
29.
think. Yeah, so I think he's the same as Dylan. So you're crazy saying that Dylan's going to get more attention from the team than Eli. Are you kidding me? That was the whole reason Eli came over there. He's going to get attention. If he's not, they're going to get in there and find it. He brought over his own suspension technician. They're putting a lot into Tomac no matter what. If he's 5th, 6th, 7th, he's still going to get more than Dylan, or at least the same amount.
Yeah, Roxon's 27. Dylan is 27 as well.
Okay.
Who do you think has got the biggest smile on their face right now? Mr. Bobby Reagan is sitting there with his cup of coffee because he's got two guys that want to prove, to Johnny's point, that they are the top dog underneath that blue umbrella. You got Tomac bringing a tremendous amount of history and success. You've got Ferrandis that's got a lot of momentum. Chris, you bring up a good point. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think Tomac's been injured since he blew out both of his shoulders, has he?
Nothing major.
Yeah, I mean, nothing that's kept him off the track.
No, well, he missed one round because of his shoulder that he hit at Anaheim. But other than that, I don't recall any.
And so you look at that athletic maturity. Every gate drop adds more maturity. Look at Bobby Reagan. He's got two guys that want to show that they are the top guy. So they're going to continue to push the envelope up, where if we go back over to Sexton and Roxon, Honda's really pissed because Kenny hasn't delivered in 3 years. You've got Sexton who feels a little frustrated that he didn't get enough undivided attention. So are they fighting it the same way that Tomac and Ferrandis are? I don't think so at all. I think that's more of an in-team fighting where Ferrandis and Tomac are like, no, I'm better. No, I'm better. No, I'm better. No, I'm better. I look at Sexton and Roxon, they're just trying to essentially justify themselves amongst the team, where those two, Tomac and Ferrandis, are like, no, I'm the better guy. No, I'm the better guy. Well, think about it. You've got Tomac bringing all of that success with Ferrandis coming off of a recent success. That's an ideal team environment right there. Because we saw KTM had it 2 years ago. Excuse me, Johnny.
No, I'm interrupting you. I'm the one being a
you're
dickhead.
good.
And
Yeah, you are. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we all
I'm
know I'm a dickhead.
to say that.
Yeah, I just did. You know, I am a dickhead.
Oh, me too.
Dickhead. Mix and ass, right? Mix and ass. So this is kind of another shitty analogy, but Tomac is kind of like the Conor McGregor of motocross, coming, just completely taken over. And now that he's achieved everything that he has with multiple motocross championships, and then now he's got his elusive Supercross championship, what's his motivation to continue to improve on what he's done? He's been considered the best rider in the world, and now, you know, arguably there's some other guys like Hurlings are involved in that conversation, but Tomac, at least in my opinion, is not in really the argument of the fastest guy right now. And I think Dylan is almost in that argument where he's got the motivation. He's got the reason behind the push in those scenarios where like things aren't really going your way. I think he's going to make it happen because he's never had a championship 450 title before. And he, I believe, thinks that he deserves to have one. So again, that's why I think over at Yamaha, he's the dude that is going to be holding the big championship trophy at the end of the year.
Johnny, I totally disagree with you.
I think it's all up here.
You're questioning his motivation, Tomac's. How can you? This guy's coming off of Kawasaki. He's pissed. He really wants to prove.
Yeah, I would like to believe that. We talk about the whole mileage thing. You know, this sport is so incredibly dangerous. These guys have to put so much on the line. And when you have money, when you have everything already taken care of for you, like what is your motivation to risk your life for something that you've already achieved?
Tomac's had that his whole life. His dad's a professional athlete. They live on a beautiful farm. He didn't have to go risk everything. Just to be a racer.
I know. And that's why I'm saying is in this season with this many good riders, when you're up against guys that are willing to risk everything, what is your motivation to get to their same level and be on that just hair edge of really, really hurting yourself? And I don't think Tomac is willing to do that, dude. I think those guys are now starting to think about like, okay, what am I going to do with now that I've got children? What am I going to do with, I want to watch them grow up. I'm not trying to be a sourpuss here. I'm just saying these guys have been successful. They've done it. They've made it happening. Now it's getting towards to start thinking about what's the next step in their future. I'm going to be fucking blown away if Tomac wins the championship this year. Yes, everyone can say, you know, Johnny doesn't know shit. That's all cool and everything. But moving on to that,
Hold on. I
got a couple. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
Johnny, 2 years ago, you told me Tomac didn't have motivation and he was going to retire. Last year, I believe you also alluded to not motivation, going to retire.
Oh,
and now
man,
you're going
this
again.
is not aging.
Sooner or later, you're going to be all right. So maybe it's this year. I don't know.
That's the thing about predictions, dude. You keep making the same effing prediction, and then once it happens, then you go like, "Hey guys, look,
I'm a genius.
timestamp. I made the prediction. It happened. Boom, boom, boom. Trump 2024."
But think about this. We have an excitement level from Ferrandis going into the 450 class because he's the new kid on the block in that class. If you take the age out of the equation, just if you look at the timeline, and this is just only for illustration purposes, If Chad Reed lines up on the gate tonight, AC would have no problem moving Chad Reed. Plessinger would have no problem moving Chad Reed, but go back 8 years ago, and it's like, oh, don't touch. That's Chad Reed. Don't touch Chad Reed. Chad Reed's the beast. I think this is the year that Tomac is going to get moved because people go, it's Tomac. Where before it was like, whoa, don't touch Tomac. I think Tomac doesn't have that excitement. Chris, you're exactly right. A lot of motivation, but will we see it? I think that he will come out like a caged animal, but I think when he gets pushed and gets pushed around very early in the series, he's going to be done because he's going to realize he doesn't have that enthusiasm. He doesn't have that, I want to fight back. To Chris's point, I've got a child, I've got more money, I've got all the success, I've got all the accolades. It's going to be that paradigm shift. I hate to say it, when we saw Chad Reed start to go down, where people weren't afraid to bump him instead of everybody staying away from him. And I think this is going to be the year that we see Tom again. Would anybody be surprised to see him come out and win? No. Do we know he's capable? Yes. We saw it all last year. Who are we going to see? We joked, if he doesn't win, who cares? If he does win, look at me. But I just think that as you guys have alluded already, at Cowie, AC and Anderson, at Honda, Sexton, Roxon, KTM, Webb, Plessinger, and Marv. When you go to Yamaha, you got Ferrandis and Christian. Get to Husky with Malcolm and Dean, and obviously Barsha with Gas. Not one of those guys now are afraid to put Tomac on the ground, where 3-4 years ago, nobody would have touched him.
I agree. And I'm just, since we're talking so much on Tomac, this is the shitty thing where, everyone in the comments below, let me know how fucked up all my predictions and shit. All right, it's okay.
Hey, don't say that, man, because you and I are on point for both.
We got to make some sort of bet here because you guys are dead wrong on this one. I'm sorry. This is more.
Tomac is. I'm going with biggest disappointment. Let's talk about biggest disappointment. Tomac is going to be my biggest disappointment. The reason why, Cooksey, he's my biggest disappointment is because just the reason why you're fighting me so hard on this is because everyone expects him to win. Everyone expects that he's going to be the dude over there at Yamaha, and I just don't think it's going to happen. I think just what Rob is saying, there's a paradigm shift going on. The motivation might be there, but I think this is the hardest season for Tomac because he doesn't just have the sheer Tomac shift to gear raw speed that he used to be like 2, 3, 4 seconds a lap faster than everybody. There's riders out there that can match that kind of pace. And when shit gets running, they can turn that switch on and ride that real ragged edge. And Tomac is going to have to compete with guys that can ride that ragged edge. And for there, I think he's just going to, this is going to be a make it or break it season for Tomac. I really, really think, granted, we could say I said that 2 fucking years ago, Cooksey, I'm not going to even go back and look at it. There's so much more going on right now that he's my biggest disappointment. That's it. Digression over. Okay, Cooksey, say a little bit about why I'm wrong, and then who's your biggest disappointment?
Well, I think you're my biggest disappointment at this point.
Get on the list.
Okay. So, no, Tomac, let's see. Who won the last outdoor national? Yeah, Eli Tomac.
You're not
so
making
he
a point.
Doesn't
Motocross
have that...
and Supercross is different. Okay.
Well, you said 4 seconds a lap, so I assume because he's never done that in Supercross, I assume that was outdoor. Am I wrong?
He's still hammered down where he's
never been 4 seconds faster in the field in Supercross ever. Like that's just no.
But okay.
But I get your point. He's been
semantics. Even if it's 30 not 30, a half a second faster on a Supercross track, you're looking at 30. a minute lap time versus 2.5 minute lap times, that's equivalent to 2-3 seconds a lap. So therefore, I'm arguing with you. Continue.
I agree, but you're wrong. My biggest disappointment is going to be the entire Baker's factory. How long have they been the most dominant training team? And they've always had the best guy. This is the year.
Wasn't that like even last year? They were kind of like the biggest disappointment too.
No, they had Webb. Webb got a title.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I don't know how you call a champion the disappointment. Did I make him the disappointment? I don't think I did.
No. Just continue on.
Oh, now you're making stuff up, Johnny. You're killing me here, bro.
I don't.
But no, I mean, they got Stewart, Plessinger. I love both those guys. And if either one of them stepped up and won the title, great. I would be completely ecstatic to be one of the best stories in the sport. I don't see that happening. RJ Hampshire in the 250s. I love RJ, but RJ's RJ. He's going to win races and be around, and he's second fiddle to Jet Lawrence. So, and who's, do they have another guy? They had Osborne, but he's out. So did they replace that, coach?
Max Volan.
Oh no, really?
I thought Max Volan's on KTM.
He is.
Yeah, he's there at Baker's factory as well.
Oh,
so he's got two 250s and two 450s. Yes, this will be the biggest disappointment. And I don't like seeing any young rider go on that program. I just don't think it's good for him. So that's my biggest disappointment, guys.
All right, Rob, coach.
Well, and I can show you my talking notes here because I'm not trying to mirror. Since
Did I say that you're my favorite out of Cooksey and the coach, Rob? Have I told you that?
Oh, Johnny, you're my favorite and my most hated.
I like what Johnny said. Add to the list. It's ironic because, like I said, I had Ferrandis, Webb, and Sexton, and none of us talked before the show. So it's ironic that Johnny, you and I have 2 and 3 together, or 1 and 2 together. My biggest disappointment I had was Tomac, and the only reason being is we don't know what we're going to see. For 2 years now, we don't know who's going to show up. Every single podcast, every online article, it restates the same thing. Could he win? Absolutely. Does he when he wants to? Of course. Do we know when he's going to flip that switch? None of us know. I don't think he knows. And going back to what we just talked about in the last subject, when you look at the idea that he's got a little one, I don't think the second one's been born yet, but 2 little ones at home, starts evaluating the risk benefit. I just don't see him being the guy that we think. And I think this will be the last time we see Tomac.
You guys, hold on. I'm going to go because you're going to say the same thing, Johnny.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
You guys are haters. And what you guys aren't paying attention to.
Now you're sounding like
Tomac.
Now you're sounding like the keyboard
only
warriors.
T-shirt I own of a professional
Hey, this is 2-on-1 here. One at a time.
Tomac.
One at a time.
When you use the word haters, because
I'm
we
kidding
are not.
when I say that.
No. I know you are, but trust me, the keyboard warriors will go off on that whole word.
Oh,
no
wait.
Warriors.
The Tomac fans are going to crush you guys.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
Cooksey.
But hold on.
Let
me go back to why Eli's going to have a good season again. So when a UFC fighter, say they have a couple losses or a bad run, they'll change weight classes, which is the equivalent to like a rider changing teams. You get a fresh coat of paint. You get to start over. There's a fresh new motivation. Will he be this motivated next year? I don't know, but he is this year. You guys are missing out.
Yeah, no, okay. You're absolutely right, dude. Okay, but then when that fighter goes into his next 2 matches and loses those matches, that's when you start thinking in your head, like, man,
Then it's career over.
I'm not saying his career is over with. I'm just saying Rob and I are not on the majority. And as Mark Twain said, if you find yourself on the majority, you should stop and reflect. And I think, Cooksey, you should kind of stop and reflect, see what's everything going on.
I'm not on the majority. I'm giving you my opinion.
The majority is that Tomac is the shit, which he deserves to be in the Motorcycle Hall of Fame. And he has done amazing things for the sport. And I don't need to talk him up. I'm just talking about the next season. I don't think he's winning. He's my biggest disappointment just for that reason, that everyone thinks that him switching this team is going to be some magical moment that he is going to Bubba Stewart the entire Supercross season. And I just don't see it happening.
Well, let's not forget, I have him second. And now are you classifying anything other than a win as disappointment? Because I say top 3. I say top 3, and I think you guys are crazy for going outside the top 3. But I just don't see how, unless he has a mechanical, an injury, there's no way he doesn't end up in the top 3.
Overall or every weekend?
Overall.
Yeah. I go back to Johnny's point when that UFC fighter comes back and loses the next two fights. Why did he lose those next two fights? It's that new breed of athlete that's coming in that's learned, watched a lot of tapes, learned what that fighter was doing, has done that plus a little bit more. And that's what I think you're going to see this year. Sexton, Roxon, AC, Anderson, Webb, Plessinger, Marv, Savachi, McElrath, Ferrandis, Christian Craig, Bogle, I think will be a surprise for some people. Malcolm and Dean and Barsha. Those are, if you look at that, that's 15 factory riders that, again, we could sit here and go through all the age. Is Dean Wilson, does he have a lot of fight left in him? I don't think so. He tapped out of outdoors with, fatigue related issues. But when to Johnny's point about a fighter getting beat the next two times he comes back, it's because that new breed comes in. There's that hunger. There's that fight in the belly that I don't see Tomac having this year. And the only reason why I say that, not on a hater level, just looking at the inconsistencies last year. Why? A bike he's familiar with. Now, granted, we understand there was a lot. He was due for a change, no doubt. Like you said, Alan said it tonight or today's conversation, probably on both sides. Callie was tired of hearing him whine about everything. He was tired of not being listened to. Hey, the honeymoon's over, right? In this case, Tomac was so inconsistent on a chassis that he knew, a bike that he's won on, with people around him that's been successful. And the inconsistencies in the results, Chris, unfortunately, fall outside of your idea of being top 5 every weekend. Because when he was bad, he was really bad. When he was good, he's really good. And that's where I think it gets into that psyche, like he just didn't give a shit. Now, again, it could be like he didn't give a shit because he was on a green bike anymore. None of us know. We're all spitballing. It's not like we've got him on the line and we can share his thoughts. And even when you do get him on a podcast, he doesn't share his thoughts. So it doesn't matter either way.
Do you guys remember the 96 season when McGrath got beat by Emig? He was on the Suzuki. Everyone was saying the exact same thing you guys are saying. He jumps on Yamaha, fresh coat of paint, 3 more titles. Am I saying 3 more titles? But I'm just saying, I think you're going to see an improvement over last year, which puts him in the top 3 consistently.
How many more years did McGrath race after those 3? Didn't he go 2 more? Yeah. So if you're
he went 3 to championship, lost to Carmichael, was going to ride a KTM, hurt his hip, and that was it.
But if you were to tell me, if we were going to go on timelines, though, this would be when Tomac left Geico and you had that fire in the belly. He wanted to show he was the next guy that wanted to be the badass dude. That's where Ferrandis is at. Tomac, unfortunately, is that timeline is past him. He doesn't have that fire in the belly. We know he's capable of it. I just think that these new guys have so much more excitement. And will Tomac refire himself up? Well, for the sake of the sport, I would love to see it.
I was only 6 at the time. Okay. But Emick, wasn't he really one of the only guys that could beat McGrath at the time?
The year before, McGrath won 14 of 15, and he almost beat Emig on the one. So no.
Well, I'm saying like this season, if we're going to compare, you just were saying that there's like 10 guys that could win. And if we're going back to that deal. So what I'm saying is like, if you look at like a performance graph, when there's a big breakthrough, people jump up. You have a McGrath, you have a Carmichael, you have a Bubba, like Carmichael, what he did was he brought the sheer just effort. Let's just put a shit ton of effort, just workload into the sport. Okay. And he was dominant. Couple straight seasons of winning everything, Supercross and that sort of thing. Even though he wasn't the fastest guy, people were paying attention. They found out like, hey, you don't have to be the fastest guy to win races. So I just need to get on Carmichael's program of just overwork. Well, what happened? You have this shift of everyone just start working their ass off. And so now it's harder for Carmichael to continue to be as dominant. So Carmichael retires. Same thing with Stewart. Stewart brought the whole Bubba scrub where when he was the first guy to do it, arguably, okay, there's some other people, but anyway, he was the first guy on TV and everything to really make it mainstream. He was so much faster than everybody. So there was like a revolution that happened. Then everyone started copying him. And then the gap became a lot smaller in speed. Tomac can be in that same genre of riders that have just been sheer dominant. And now everyone is closing in on him and it just eventually he's just going to be passed is all we're basically saying. So we're just continuing to digress a little bit more. Let's talk about your standout riders, teams, whatever, of this season. So I want to say Jason Anderson on the Kawasaki is going to be my standout rider, because I think him on a good team that is a little bit more free, maybe a little bit more structured than maybe Husky was, as far as not just letting him do everything. I think him being a little bit older, I really would like to see Jason Anderson win a few races and have some sheer raw moments of entertainment and just be spectacular. And then if I had to go with maybe a privateer, it'd probably have to be Cody Schock because of his outdoor performance. I think that dude really needs to be picked up on a factory team, a big, good factory team, to be seen as a rider that can really make shit happen. So, Cooksey.
Hold on. I didn't know we're doing privateer, but Cody Schock, isn't he riding 250s?
Is he riding 250s or is he jumping to 450s? Maybe he did get on a
because he's on the Phoenix Honda team, right?
Yes, he is on the Phoenix Honda team.
Okay.
I really think that he rides a 450 better, and I'd like to see him up in the 450s. But my standout has got to be Jason Anderson on the Kawasaki for this year.
So there's a guy that going back to the same issue we've been talking about, who's kind of lost motivation, right? He kind of lost motivation, kind of went through the motions last year, didn't come back for outdoors. Now he's got a fresh coat of paint, right? New team, new opportunities. That's a lot of motivation there. Hey, Johnny.
Damn you with your analogies and trying to
comparisons.
Use my own words against me. It's the same, but it's different. Okay. That's all I have to say. It's the same, but it's different. And it's going to work to make you happy. We got to make some sort of bet. Anderson. It's not going to work for Tomac. Boom. Call me the I don't want to say Dalai Lama, but so I can predict shit. It's what's happening.
The Swami. So Johnny will strictly adhere to the rules he makes up right now.
Yes. But I mean, doesn't that what Feld and AMA and all them do anyway?
Oh, absolutely. So. Okay. So moving on, my standout is a veteran, a rider that you guys probably think is on his way out. He's got a Supercross only deal. It's the Frenchman, Marvin Musquin. He has done so good this offseason. He looks ready. And the fact that they didn't give him an outdoor contract and really kind of shoved him aside, that's something that will give him motivation. Now,
did he not want the outdoor? Because that's a lot of just time on the bike. And
he wanted it, but they wouldn't offer it to him. Supercross only. He wanted it.
It was insulting in my opinion. And it was like, well, okay, we'll give you, this ride only. And we're bringing in Plessinger. And I'm not going to lie. I fully expect Marvin to be ahead of Plessinger 9 times out of 10 in this season. So,
I do.
But yeah, he's going to get some podiums. I mean, people forget he won the last Supercross last year. It's not like he's that far from winning. So.
He's just he will always go down until he changes it as the bridesmaid, because he was the bridesmaid to Dungey, and we saw him get taken. Like, I'll never forget that when Stewart, the lapper, got in his way and Dungey was able to pass him, on like the last lap. Like, that was it was hard to swallow. We talk about like the whole finite of opportunity. That's where a little bit of the luck comes in hand. And I'm digressing. Rob, Coach.
Well, here's the funny part. Again, the three of us haven't spoken beforehand. My original standout was Anderson. You chose him, so I chose before Chris started talking. I chose Marvin. He chose Marvin. So just to try to break up, so we each have our own little guy. My first was Anderson, then it was Marv. And the reason why I go with Marv is, he's picked up DV as his riding coach, and he's parted from the Alden program. So again, I think he's going to be fresher. He's gotten kind of dicked around on his contract. So my next standout, just to be different than you guys, is Malcolm. It's the structure for Malcolm is going to be good up to a point. I think that if Malcolm can adhere to the structure, could lose a few pounds, and can kind of get that fire in his belly. There's been a lot of keyboard experts that are saying, hey, now that Malcolm's got both Supercross and outdoors, and he's got a 2-year deal, we'll see a revised Malcolm. So let's throw him out there. I'll put him out there as my standout for 2022. if all things go well.
See, I
What
almost had
monster?
him. Oh, I almost had him as my biggest disappointment because everyone's like, "Oh, he's going to be in shape. He's going to be in shape." Well, let's not forget he was in shape with MCR. Tony Alessi had him on a program. He looked good and came in and he did good. But I almost think that's the ceiling for him is fifth to third. That's to me, that's kind of the ceiling. He may have one breakout ride and win, which I would love, and it's so good for the sport. But I don't see much of a big improvement with him.
My big
Yeah.
question on that is, remember when James signed with JGR and they had they had a very strict program. You're going to live here, do our program. And James said, no, I'm not. So he was the first guy that blew JGR's model apart and it never worked afterwards. Are we going to see the same thing with Malcolm where Malcolm pulls the, I'm a steward. You're not going to tell me what to do. This is not for me. I'm going to go do my own thing. I mean, history speaks that the Stewart name has a lot of clout to be able to do whatever they want. I don't know. Malcolm,
No, not unless you're winning titles. You're not doing that.
that's the $1 million question, right? Because if he comes out and is doing well and then
How many
decides
podiums has Malcolm gotten in the 450 class?
I think one.
Yeah. Yeah. So stand out if he can get his ass on the podium,
well, again, we're back to another guy that has probably more talent in one finger than a lot of us have in
It's
our
true.
entire life. We hate to say it, but you could put Malcolm in that same category of what are we going to see? Justin Hill, what are we going to see? Malcolm, what are we going to see? Tomac, what are we going to see? Heck, I guess we could go through every one of these riders.
Well, we haven't even mentioned Adam Cincerello.
Well, that's what you took the words right out of my
Oh.
mouth. We know, but no, to your point, we know he's capable of winning, but we have to go off the last 2 seasons that he hasn't finished healthy. Now, that's not a lack of talent. That's not a fitness issue. It's injury related. Again, I've already given you my opinion on why these injuries are happening, but it's awfully consistent amongst every colored team. Look at the attrition rate we had in outdoors last year. We had more guys factory not racing than we did racing. And you're going to tell me that they're not fatigued, overworked, underfed. I mean, they're just overextended all the way around.
Yeah.
Is that
And
the
I
trainers
consider,
program, the series program, all the above? Go ahead, Johnny. Excuse me.
yeah, I'm
No, go ahead.
interrupting. My definition of like a standout for this season is it's a surprise. It's a surprise. AC would not fall in that category because it's not going to be a surprise that he's going to be top qualifier and potentially be fighting for wins. Definitely going to be fighting for some wins. That's not a surprise. Malcolm Stewart fighting for wins, fastest podium. That's a surprise. Jason Anderson doing the same thing. It's kind of a surprise.
Well, AC finishing a season would be a surprise.
Okay. Yeah, that would be.
I mean, it's just, and I hate to say that because I love that kid. I still see him on an 85. He'll always have an affinity for me. And as I've teased even last year, I chose AC, because I really believe that he's got the talent. I know he's got the work ethic. I don't know this whole Nick Way versus his own dad. That's a pretty sticky subject, which I know nothing about. I've not had lunch with Alan or anything. I still don't understand how that dynamic. I know AC needed to grow up, but why would you completely change something that has worked all the way up to the highest level of
elaborate
success?
a little bit for everyone, including myself. Is he having issues with his dad?
No. This goes back however long ago, Chris, did Nick Way get moved into AC's program? Back in 250 days?
Yeah, it's been like his second to last 250 year. He wanted to be his own man. Alan was over there and he wanted to be his own man. So he kind of made some changes. Is that right, Coach?
Yeah. So Johnny, think about it this way. Your dad brings you all the way up to essentially a pro circuit ride. And then he decided to put Nick Way in there. And again, we saw that with Villopoto, with his dad. We
Everybody.
saw it with everybody.
Everybody.
It just is the most recent example.
It's the problem as to why the sport doesn't become you have to work your ass off so much as an amateur, and the parents have to fit the dime and everything. And so then they're kind of left with 3 mortgages, etc. when their kid goes to become a professional. It's a fucked up scenario, and it happens to everybody, but nobody.
But here's what's interesting. Alan C., his dad, is a real estate guru. AC's grandfather is a real estate guru. Unlike a lot of other situations, his parents have never lived off of AC's money, ever, and never will, never need to. So when you look at some of these scenarios, All I'm saying, and I want to bring the conversation back because I don't want the listeners to get caught up on, there's a rift between the parents. No. That's not what I'm asking. All I'm saying is AC had such an incredible, when I was working with him on 85s, he never had a broken bone except his coccyx bone. That's your sit bone, because he looped out. They were training at Waldo and he looped out. That was the only bone he broke. I got interviewed by a European magazine that said, hey, because AC gets plucked out of the 85, first time in history, goes right to a 250 pro program. Never been seen before. The question that was asked of me is, how do you think AC will do? And I was very honest. My biggest litmus test for AC is, how's he going to handle a disappointment of a significant injury? He goes over to the European Supercross, smashes the wall. He's been hurt every year since.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth. For the listeners, don't grab the keyboard and start saying I'm a dick. Go listen to AC's interviews on Jace at Gypsy Tales when he was at his lowest of lows and thought his career was over because he couldn't seem to be the future. He wasn't developing on par, like you were saying, Johnny, where everything just seems to be natural, right?
That's where the luck comes in handed. You
Right.
have such talented riders like Kennard,
But you have that progression and that expectation. And then AC's kind of fell off. The biggest competitor he had was Cooper Webb. Cooper's now 2-time champion, now moves to 450 as a 450 championship. And AC, his own words, I'm paraphrasing, was like, I think my career is over. I don't know if I'm going to be re-signed. Because he had just thrown away that Vegas championship. Mm-hmm. He was completely frustrated. My point is this: the surprise of AC finishing a series. And then if you look at how durable AC was underneath his dad, I don't know how all this works. I know Nick Way has a tremendous amount of experience and all that, but I just find it interesting when you look at Chase Sexton, he still has his dad with him as part of his infrastructure as kind of that wise counsel. Now, this conversation has gotten a little bit convoluted.
Yeah.
We originally
Coach, I got to jump in there. When he hit the wall and had the initial injuries, he was with Alden.
That's my point. Fragile, undernourished, right? But
I don't know how you can, like you said, Allen, when did he leave Alden and go to Allen in between, or what do you mean? I guess I don't know the whole story on that.
I don't know the exact timeline. I know that there was that transition where he went from the 85 class to the 250 class, goes to Alden's program, hits that wall, in my opinion, extremely frail, very fragile, never fully recovered from it, in my opinion, to the point that he has to go have shoulder surgery. My point in this, that's why I'm saying it's gotten convoluted. I'm just saying, surprise-wise, AC finishing a season was a huge surprise.
So hopefully he's healthy and hopefully he can finish the whole season.
But the biggest change since he's gone pro and has not had the durability is when his dad was taken from the equation. And I don't know if that directly.
So then other people might potentially be making decisions for him rather than his dad kind of making some of the better. That's kind of where I'm getting out of this. And yes, we're getting way convoluted on it. I guess we could say
AC
one more thing
to his fruition. That's all, because I know he's got the potential.
In his potential, because he can definitely win. Like, we're all gonna watch him win the championship.
Yep. And Nick Way is a great guy, and he's done good things. We've seen what he's done with McAdoo and the others. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and we talk about at the beginning of this that sometimes a rider doesn't make a good coach. I would say Way, on the other hand, sometimes he might not potentially be a better coach than he was a rider, which is saying a lot because he was a very, very good rider. So he's done both really well. Yes. What is your best team for the 450s? Let's go. I guess we'll gear back to me. I say it's the Yamaha because I'm a weed whacker.
How do you say it's the best when Tomac's not even going to be top 3?
I say he's got Christian Craig in there.
Team. I'm just saying team-wise, because you got KTM's got Marv, Webb, AP. It was kind of between those two for me. It was KTM or Yamaha. I'm a trend follower. Okay. And what is the trend? The trend is you got to be on the Yamaha. What is Tomac doing, Cooksey? He's getting on the Yamaha because it's what is it? What is it? You want to tell me? It's
a weed whacker.
Best team currently. All right. Cooksey, what's your best team?
Honda, HRC.
Oh,
they are good. I mean, Yamaha, it's hard to deny the reason Yamaha, but I just still feel like HRC is the team. When you walk through the pits, you see that red, white, and blue HRC, and that's a little bit intimidating. So that's kind of why. I mean, they got Roxon, Sexton, two guys that could easily, with a little bit of luck, be champion at the end of the year. They're both fast. They're both competitive, and they seem to have a lot more guys over there with look like engineers calculating stuff. So that's why I'm going to go with that one. Coach?
Yeah, I'm going to go with KTM. I think when you've got Webb, Plessinger, and Marv, I think if you're looking at adding up manufacturer points, and they've got obviously RD at the top of the helm there, they've got Ian, you've got Carlos with Webb. I mean, who's Plessinger's mechanic? Do you guys know off the top of your head? Because we know Jade. Oh, that's right. Jade is over there now. So I'm sorry. I was thinking about the opposite way of who was with Sexton's mechanic. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, with Jade Dungy going over to Plessinger, you've got Carlos with Webb, you've got Marv. I don't think his mechanic has changed, and they obviously have good chemistry together. Marv is going to be fresher. So if I'm going to look at OEM top points, I'm going to go KTM.
Wow. We were actually all three different. So
Yep.
that's
Did
a
you guys
first.
think I was going to go Rocky Mountain KTM and Forrest Butler?
Absolutely. I thought for sure that was what was coming out. Well,
No.
and you know what's interesting? Speaking of that team, I think we need to switch the name, because isn't that going to become Mark McKenzie's team?
I don't know. Well, the interview,
We're told he's an investor, but that investor sure has had a lot of weight in the decisions and changes of that team.
Well, when you actually cut checks, you probably can.
So it just makes you wonder. I mean, yes,
He holds the money, makes the rules.
That's right. And I think when we look at historically, sure. I mean, we all remember it as the original Butler Brothers Racing. Now you look at it with Mark investing in there. We knew Max was coming because he and Mark are tight to begin with. They've got Joey and they've got Shane. And if they're getting the KTM parts the way, we know they are. I think what's going to be an interesting twist was that this particular team has chosen to pull some of their R&D indoors, in-house. Is that going to be a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, who they're using is obviously very reputable and has, good track record, but a lot of changes. That's why I was saying earlier, I had to choose Ferrandis at the top, because if I look at all of the shakeups and changes and adjustments, Ferrandis has got the most. Probably this KTM team, I can't ever remember, there's 37 sponsors in their title.
You think they can pay their riders?
I think with Mark there, it's not going to be an issue. And I think that's why they were able to get Joey to stay. Don't know where Joey would have gone otherwise. I think that was why Shane was able to come out of retirement. I'm not going to say he had officially said he was retired, but I think Shane would not race for free and wouldn't run that risk of not getting paid. Yeah. I think with Mark coming in has seriously bred a lot of life into that team, to the point that they've pulled some things inside. They've got Seth over there. I don't know much about Seth as a trainer. I don't even know what his background is, but the backbone of their training program has always been Burner. Burner's now with Webb. They're all training at that compound together. So this particular KTM team has a lot of changes this year with some very solid riders with Joey, Max, and Shane.
Yeah. Small digression before we just briefly talk about the 250s. What do you guys think Hill's going to do? Justin, if he's going to be just pure privateer effort. And then do we know, is Baggett, is he thinking of coming back, or is he just done?
Done.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. Which is,
I mean,
sad.
he's so jaded with the sport, and can you blame him? I mean, no disrespect. We were talking about the passing of time so quickly. Look at the rosters. You got Sexton and Roxon. If there's a change at Honda, it's Jet goes to Roxon's position. You've got AC and Anderson, 2 years on both of theirs. Webb,
and
Plessinger,
and these 250
and you've
guys
got
coming up.
Webb, Plessinger, and Marv, Yamaha, Ferrandis, Tomac, Christian, Malcolm, and Dean, Barsha at Gas. Where would he go if he did come back?
Well, and what sucks is that facility that he spent years and years building out there on his property. He didn't really I bet he wishes he had that shit 10 years ago as opposed to now, because he just briefly got to use it.
Yep.
That's sad. Hill, do you guys think that he is going to be top 10? If don't?
No.
Cooksey?
He could. What you're gonna see with him is you're gonna see him pop up on the timed qualifying up there in the top 5, and everyone's gonna get excited. And he's gonna have some heat race runs where he's up near the front, might even get a heat race win.
Ooh, that's saying a lot. That's
Justin Hill.
He's a good
so
starter.
much talent.
He's
so
a good
much
starter.
talent.
No, he is. I'm surprised that he doesn't have a big team behind him.
Yeah,
Well,
but would you invest in him based on the track record of he shows up, doesn't show up, shows up, doesn't show up? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
No way in
I
hell
mean-
would I spend $1 on him. Great guy, like Chris is saying, talent, but it's too much. You don't know who's going to show up.
Maybe there just needs to be some direction in his program, because
He doesn't want it. He doesn't want it though. As soon as there gets to be a little bit of structure, it's that laissez-faire attitude. I'm going to do what I want, when I want, how I want. Because what I was going to ask Johnny is, if you're asking, can he do well? Absolutely. Will he do well? We don't know. We don't know who's going to show up. I know we've used that illustration a lot, which is
Do you
kind of
think
one of
he's
the
going
things
to
that
qualify every Supercross?
I wouldn't say every, but I think he'll get the lion's share for sure.
I say he's at least going to be in the main event for
The majority.
I would be shocked if he DNQs without a crash or bike failure.
What
right.
team is he on? Like what equipment?
PRMX, the Kawasaki PRMX. Is that what it is?
Who does their motors? Do you know?
I don't
if
know.
It's Twisted Development,
I think it might be, but I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that one.
Well, and that's the big thing is what kind of equipment is he on? Because if you put him in a typical LCQ, which again, looking at this 450 class, we are going to see some of these top dudes are going to be stuck in an LCQ just on sheer numbers. You have 15 factory guys. There's only 20 spots on the main event. You're going to have guys in the LCQ, whether we like it or not.
Yeah,
Well,
that's honestly just putting it in numbers right there. You got 15 factory guys. This might be the year that we have the most factory guys.
Well, and think about it. We're sitting here on December 19th, and we have no 450 guys that are out. The only person that's been hurt is Jet Reynolds. Everybody else up to the 19th is healthy. There's been a long time since we've had that.
Well, and then you still got, Vince Freezy, who's going to be in there. You got Brandon Hartraft.
Is
What?
Vince doing?
Oh, that's right. Never
Vince
mind.
doing
Sorry,
250.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Yeah.
right.
Didn't mean to interrupt you. But
No,
yeah.
that's good. Correct me.
But you've got Bogle,
So-
Hartraft, and Entenkamp.
What is? I haven't looked at the rule book in. It's been a minute. I'll probably will.
It doesn't
It's
matter,
been
Johnny.
since,
It gets changed on an
yeah,
as needed
it's-
basis.
Their guidelines.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to mark out of the 250 class pure points. There's no point rule to drop down to 250s. Correct.
There's no, well, that's the thing is Vince was too high. If you're top 20 in the 450s, you weren't supposed to be able to go back down. But since they're guidelines, they'll let Vince go back down.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess if you're looking at it, it's like, hey, he's going to make less money. So potentially as far as purse goes. But okay, semantic. We could get into all
I was going to say
250
80% of his money comes from MCR and
Yeah.
the team owner anyway. So
Yeah, but here's what frustrates me is I wish that Club MX would let Nicoletti go race a 450 just so he and Vince could go at it. I would pay money to see that. I would pay money to watch that. So I mean, Alex Martin will do, he'll be fun to watch on a 450, but I think Nicoletti with Vince, that would be the show to watch.
Well, they're both on 250s though, right? They should be able to do that. No,
Martin's on a 450.
no.
Alex is on a 450.
Nicoletti. Oh, you wanna see
Nicoletti's on 250 Supercross, 450 outdoors.
Well, yeah. So we'll see Nicoletti and Freezy.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. We were talking about 450s. I was on the wrong thread of thought.
Yeah.
My bad.
We moved it.
My bad.
Um,
No, that will be good. That's going to be my
I hope
my
they're on the
show
same
that I'm going to
coast.
watch. Oh gosh, I hope so.
So since we're talking about 250s, let's just briefly kind of our concerns and let's just say who our first and on both coasts are, because it's real shitty that nobody's released any information and we're like 2-3 weeks from the season starting, and pretty much I would assume most of the teams have already signed their riders up for all the races. Yeah, as far as prepaid, the entry fee and everything, but none of that information is released to the public, which is real shitty. So Cooksey, who do you think is going to win the East and West? And yeah, this might be all fucked up because of the fact that we could say something that a rider's on a different coast, etc. But let's just shoot, go.
screw you teams, first off, for not choosing a coast one way or the other. The only one I'm going to talk about is Jet Lawrence, because he kind of told us what they were planning. And I'm not telling you dumbass teams to set it and then just, if a guy gets hurt, he just sits out. No. You can change it. But if you literally, all racing is a promotion for whatever you're sponsoring. These are marketing vehicles. You know how much free money you're giving away by not telling us what coast, so we can't promote your guys, your team, your sponsors? You're idiots because you think there's a competitive advantage. Guess what? We all know everybody, whatever jet's going, which is most likely west, if that's what they intend to go. We know all your good guys are going to want to go east because they want to stay away from him. No big deal. But just put it out there. Quit being little bitches and doing what others do. Like, what's that Mark Twain thing? If you're going the same, you're wrong. Well, listen, they're all doing the same dumb shit. Just tell us what coast you plan on. And if there's a change, no big deal. Just change. But let us talk about it. Let us promote your sponsors. And if you don't do that, you're an idiot.
Yeah, you are very, 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 you're on to something big here. Like, who's in control of all the PR for everything? Because, if nobody's doing it, like, only the insiders know the information. And if we want to innovate and grow the sport, well, they need to do something differently. And it's
embarrassing that we don't know until the first time to qualifying who's riding in that.
And we're talking us three here. You guys more so than me are extremely, extremely knowledgeable on everything, dirt bike related. It's pretty sad that we don't know and we're looking for the information. Like, the information should just be in front of us. Boom, boom, boom. Not have to go even digging for it and still can't find anything.
And the objection I get is, well, what if a guy gets hurt and we change coast? No big deal. Make a change. That's fine. Then let us know you made the change.
Pop it on Instagram, do something, Facebook post, boom. Instantly, everyone retweets, all sorts of shit happens. And they know, oh, this guy's changed up. This guy's changed up. And then, but it's all this like hidden.
And then you got more impressions, Johnny, more impressions for your sponsors, more impressions for your dollars.
There's no such thing as bad press. And let's just say, like, your riders get injured. And so then people start talking about, like, oh, they're not going to win. They're not going to do anything because they're bad, And then when they do exceed expectations, then that's even another thing to write PR about. It's ridiculous. And this is one of those reasons where pessimistic Johnny is just like, there's nobody in the sport, because we don't advertise to other outside industries because the biggest problem with, digression. Biggest problem with this sport is no big outside sponsor. When you look at numbers, they want to go, okay, what am I getting in return? If I give you money, you say you're going to show me in front of just this small genre of collective audience that you have showing. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. So then you've got VP Race Fuels, you've got Renthal, whatever. They're like, oh yeah, because we're selling to these consumers. You're never going to get outside sponsors unless you grow the audience. And one of the reasons why we're not growing the audience is because nobody's freaking, even if you make a mistake in a press release, it's still out there. We live in a society where nothing has to be perfect right now. It's more about, like you said, impressions, clicks. Okay. So as far as people giving me shit and Jace shit about too, is it's the clickbait stuff. You need to have that. That's just the world we live in. We live in a world of our attention span is 15 seconds. And so I probably lost everybody, including you and Rob, by this small little digression on everything. That's just where it's at. I would say Jet is for sure going to win the West Coast. The East Coast, I'm going to say it's a Yamaha guy. I think Colt, he's going to stay East because he's the champ over there. He wants to wear the number one. At least I would. So I would say he's going to win the East. But boom, there we have it. Rob, your thoughts?
I want to go back on just something that you were talking about. What I always say with my athletes is I'm never going to have an injury be hidden, because think about it. If you know that you're racing me and I've come back from an injury and I beat your ass, you're thinking, wow, you just beat me and you're at 85%. When you're healthy, I'll have nothing for you. Think about the sports psychology side of that. I mean, nobody wants to race injured. Unfortunately, our sport requires it. especially when you're a professional and your contract mandates it. So think about it this way. Go ahead, Johnny.
I'm just being devil's advocate
Yeah.
here. Let's just say your knee is fucked up. If
Yep.
I know your knee is fucked up and I know which knee it is, well, I might come in and stuff you on that side knowing that you're hurt. So I think it could go both ways. I think that's why some guys
it can go both
hold
ways,
off
100%.
their little injury there. But
Yeah.
I see your point, you know.
Well, especially when somebody comes back and they're like, wow, first race back being healthy, and all of a sudden you stomp me. Oh, shoot. I'm now, as Jet Lawrence likes to say, I'm getting free rent in their head because I've been able to prove that I came back and I came back stronger, strong enough to be able to beat you. Now we get into the reverse psychology of, damn, he's injured, just coming off of an injury and comes out firing on all 8 cylinders. So we get into that constant mental headspace. Again, going back to Jeff Emmig's comment about momentum versus a points lead, I'm always going to go for that. Chris, did you have something before I give you my East and West?
No, I was going to say, Johnny, these guys all know who's hurt. It's us that doesn't know. It's the fans, the media, the other riders know when somebody's hurt. You trying to tell me that they didn't know Roxon's arm was messed up, and they know the guys they can bully.
No, but when you're out on the track and when it has happened, as far as I disagree with you as far as if it's a small little nagging injury, they're going to try to keep it away from the other riders because they don't want the riders to exploit it, because all motorcycle racing is ego, and we don't want to give another, especially competitor, an edge on us because it's a big dick measuring contest. So yes, we all know that Roxon, when there's a catastrophic, people know something like that happens. But if you have like a little nagging, twisted my knee kind of thing, because they all have something, they're all not going to like go to breakfast together and be like, oh, what hurt? They might to a small group of people, but collectively, I disagree.
Fair enough.
Respectively disagree. And, you know,
I accept.
Okay. All right.
So, like you said, not to reiterate what you guys have already, the only person that we know on the West Coast with any confidence is Jet. Even if we knew there were 75 guys on the West Coast, I'm going with Jet hands down. And I can only go through deductive reasoning. If Jet's going to be on West, and that means Hunter's on the East, and that's my pick for East Coast.
Well, I'm going to say if Max Voland is opposite Jet, he gets multiple wins. I don't know about the title, but he's going to get multiple wins.
Ooh,
agreed.
yeah.
Now,
he's the only factory KTM too, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Now, here's the only footnote. We kind of alluded to it earlier. It depends how exhausted Max gets. You know, if he can hold the load of the new program that he's being put under, the only saving grace, of course, is his dad and his uncle that have enough personal insight. And I think they've got a pretty, I don't want to say a tight leash, but I don't think that they're going to let Max get overworked. And that's going to be the saving grace for Max himself.
What do you guys think is the best team? Because we all know that there's like a shit ton of
250
Cowie riders and
250 wise.
250 rise. Yeah. There's a lot of who's on the Cowie side. You've got what? Seth
Haymaker, Shimoda, Faulkner, McAdoo, and Jet Reynolds.
Yeah, that's a lot of guys. And then the Yamaha guys, you've got what?
Nichols, Cooper, Nichols, Thrasher, and Kitchen.
Yeah, it's a lot of guys.
Pretty hard to argue against both of those teams. And then 2 heavy hitters with the Lawrence brothers at Honda, you know, and then you've got Moseman and Pierce Brown at Gas. So, and then we can't forget about Husqvarna. You've got Jalik, Hampshire, and Styles Robertson. And I don't know if they're bringing that Joshua Variez back.
It's going to be, I still think it's going to be Honda, Yamaha, though, those 2 teams with those guys.
At least for Supercross, but we don't know what the pairing up of the coasts are going to look like.
Unless
I think Troy Lee guys are going to get in there.
Really?
Yeah. Well, they got the Wilhon magic, right, Coach?
Yeah, I think he does magic. I've never met the man. I've never talked to the guy, but the momentum shift when he went over there last year was pretty astounding. Here's the thing to keep in mind, guys. We have 15 factory 450 riders. We have 23 factory 250 riders for 20 spots. Now, again, we've got to go East Coast, West Coast. Let's assume that there's an even split, but think about that.
So it's over 44 spots.
Well, let's just look at this. Let's round it. Let's say you have 23 guys and you have to split that amongst 2 coasts. just for even math. That's 12. So only leaves 8 spots, non-factory riders in a 250 main event, both coasts.
Yeah, well, the 250s though, I mean, I hate to say this, but the attrition rate is much higher because the dudes are kind of crazier.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that'll drop after 1 or 2 rounds.
Yeah, but team-wise, to your question though, Johnny, I mean, I still have to go with Yamaha only because of the experience. You've got J Mart, returning champ, Cooper, Kent champion, Nichols champion. There's 3 on one team.
Yeah, they're allowing 22 guys on the gate now, right?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they are.
And then, when you go back to pro circuit, Seth Hamaker comes in healthy this year. He won races, got rookie of the year. We know he can win. The guy that I think is going to surprise a lot of people is going to be Joe Shimoda. I think his agent, Lucas, did a phenomenal job. He got him a multi-year deal with Cowie. You got to think back just last year. Mm-hmm. Lucas Myrtle turned over every rock he could to get him being Shimoda onto that pro circuit team. Ends up being the top performer indoors and outdoors. Now he has a 2-year deal. Shimoda has 0 pressure. He has 2 years to just go out and simply race his ass off, which if we look ahead, think about musical chairs in the 450, people aging out, people moving on. Joe Shimoda will be in a perfect position because we know that Kawasaki has a big affinity towards Joe.
And then who has the most pressure on Cowie? It's Forkner.
Forkner, hands down. And you got to remember, Forkner's been promised a 450 deal somewhere, somehow before his career is over. So my little...
I didn't know that.
My little prediction is don't be surprised if you see a 450 Cowie sitting next to Pro Circuit's tent, just like Brock Tickle did by the end of the summer.
Yeah, so I guess talking a little bit about Forkner, is it the swinging of the tide, or is he really still one of the guys to really beat? Because we were talking about like our whole prediction with Tomac, how guys weren't afraid to push him out of the way. That happened like last year with Forkner, where guys were like,
no one's afraid of him. Nobody's afraid of him anymore. No. And I think when you look at, and again, we're talking a lot of moving parts here. There was a time when everybody wanted to be on PC because they had the fastest bikes. Now everybody wants to be on Yamaha because they have the fastest bikes. Well, now you add last year, we literally saw the Hondas. Let's go back 2 seasons. Think about J Mart on the Honda chasing down Ferrandas. We knew that the Yamaha was way faster. Then all of a sudden last season, the Hondas come out and now you got Jet leading some races. So they showed that they bridged that horsepower game. Then you had the Cowies in there. So we don't see that huge disparity between the Yamahas and all the other different colors. So then you bring in Forkner. Bikes are more on par, more aggressive guys, not many people afraid of them. I think you're going to see him get pushed out.
The Yamaha, Mitch Payton, do you think that they're going to have the fastest bike this season? I mean, they've had a couple years to try to catch up with the whole Yamaha crew. I would like to see it, but I think we can all agree here that as far as between the Hondas, the Cowies, and the Yamahas, that the Cowies are still going to be the slowest of the 3 bikes.
Would agree with that.
How good is that Club MX bike? Because I think Garrett Marchbanks could easily win races and
really
he's won before, and if the bike's good enough, he can get podiums. Yeah. He got podiums last year.
He did. I just think he needs just a little bit extra effort.
Well,
from a team.
I think I would agree with you, Johnny. Team wise, I think they're getting more parts this year from Yamaha since they did so well the last 2 seasons. What concerns me about him is he's sick. Being diagnosed with Addison's disease, that's another blood-related disease associated with fatigue. Most of us know Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue, Addison's disease. Those are hard to come by, hard to recover from. Is it impossible to recover from it? No. But is it difficult? Absolutely. And how much of that gets into your head, because you don't know how hard you can push without having a setback. We, as an analytics company, that's what we analyze behind the scenes. As we look at heart rate and fatigue levels and sleep cycles and all kinds of analytics, these fatigue-related issues, Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue, Addison's, this shit should not be happening at this tip of the spear.
Well, I mean,
But-
look at how fast Supercross is coming. It just felt like motocross was just over with.
Yep.
You know, like there's no time to. That's why I'm surprised to hear that Marv really wanted an outdoor ride when really I think as far as the longevity of a career, you want to go Supercross only. I mean, even look at McGrath. That's why he's the king of Supercross, is because he wasn't ridden hard and put away wet. Yeah, he did win a motocross championship, but he knew what his bread and butter was. He knew where the majority of the money was, and he just stuck with it, you know?
I totally agree.
Yeah, and I've been beating that drum for a while. I think they should be considered two completely separate sports.
Honestly, I agree. They should. I mean, they kind of technically are, because it's not like you can have a motocross pro license and you can go ride Supercross. They're two different. So they should be split. You know what, Chris? That is the smartest effing thing you have said this entire time.
Oh, you're such a dick, Johnny.
Well, and think
Thanks for
about
that.
this though. Think about this though, Johnny. You have to go race a motocross race to get your Supercross.
Yeah, it's
license.
stupid. It's stupid.
So
On
are
a
they separate? I don't know.
separate subject, Johnny, the futures. So these guys are qualifying and they're going to run on the night show on a real track. Now you got some of the guys, you know, what's the guy, Ryder D, Chance Hymas, that are able to practice on real Supercross tracks. But these dudes in 18th, 19th, 20th, are they going to even have Supercross suspension? Like, what's going to happen with these kids out there in front of a giant crowd?
It's going to be carnage. It's going to be disgusting carnage is what it's going to be.
Yeah. The scariest thing is trying to ride a full-blown Supercross track on moto stuff. The biggest confidence boost on a Supercross track is suspension all day, every day, over motor, over anything, is that suspension. Because
but suspension on what? On a practice track. Who the hell's got it to scale Supercross track? And in the quality,
that's what we're talking about.
No, I agree with you, but that's where there's this disparity. Anybody can go buy Supercross suspension, relatively speaking, right?
Yeah.
But not many people can afford to build a professional Supercross track. So you've got the suspension, but no place to practice it. That's the problem that I have with it. I'm completely aghast at this whole situation because I have 3 riders that have qualified for the futures races on a motocross track. That 1 qualified for Arlington, 2 qualified for Atlanta. What the hell?
That's where the whole amateur thing, where we should do, like where we have Ponca, where we have Loretta Lynn, where we have all this stuff. These should be 2 different sports, where we have a Loretta Supercross, we have like a Ponca Supercross, we have all this stuff that's just designated just for that, because they are completely different.
We're back to the same problem though. Are you asking those venues to create a Supercross track, whether it's somewhat an arena in between full scale and arena cross, somewhere in between? They should have a separate racetrack like Mini-O's does.
Well, let me just say this. They kind of had this pre-COVID with the futures, and it was wiped out. And I'm sure if they can get COVID under control, the futures for everybody will come back.
Yeah. Well, I think the futures was the way they had it before was stupid. You know, you had like a laid back Supercross track where it was sheer just way speed, where it wasn't like to scale. And I think the best thing that they did was honestly like the arena cross to help set up for getting your Supercross license. I thought that was
the road to Supercross.
Yeah.
But let me play devil's advocate though. Even when they had the road to Supercross, there's still a significant difference between going arena cross to full scale motocross, or excuse me, full scale Supercross. So now the futures qualifiers have gone away. They weren't making any money, which is understandable. But we're bringing futures back, but we're doing it by having them qualify on a motocross track and then race. And I want to make sure I'm not convoluting the conversation. These riders are going to go onto a full-scale Atlanta Supercross track, qualifying on a motocross track with no place to train for an at-scale Supercross track. Because as an amateur, I'm a B rider. I can't go because in California they have
you got to have your license.
You have to have your license, but I can't get on to scale Supercross track because I don't have a license, but yet I'm going to go race a futures track that's a full scale Supercross track. Am I missing something in this equation?
Okay. I wasn't there, but I believe here in Arizona at ACP, they've got a full scale Supercross track. And I think they did do some qualifying races for the futures on there. And hearing from a few guys, a bunch of fucking people got hurt. Like it was just complete carnage because nobody was set up for it. And
so let's take your point. You and Chris can run circles around me on a Supercross track. You guys both get hurt because of the attrition. I qualify. I'm not nearly as capable as you are, but I qualified. Is that the group of people you want to go see? And yet that's supposed to be the future of the sport. What's that doing for the mindset of the people this is going to be like a shit show. This is a clown show. Yeah. Because to Chris's point and yours, outside of those 4 guys at our factory, Hayden Deegan, Hamas, Alt Chance and those guys, who gets a chance to practice on a full scale Supercross track with suspension with, I know there's certain riders out there like Jet works with Jeff Ward and those guys have that experience. This
is one of those like the rich get richer type scenarios where the riders at hand, the Deegans, these guys that have access to full blown team Supercross stuff and everything, they're going to have such a big advantage over just a local kid because they don't have access to any of that stuff. So, the liberal in me, as far as like, how do you gap it, making it more fair for everyone to be able to participate in something like that. And just off the top of my hand, because again, this is all canon, no scripted, is like the Kicker Arena Cross. It's a fairly mellow Supercross track that's it's closer to Arena Cross than it is Supercross, but it's still a bigger than an Arena Cross track. And it's more tamed down than even an Arena Cross track and way more tamed down than a Supercross track. Because usually Arena Cross tracks have bigger whoops than Supercross. Sometimes there's been some big, all I'm saying is that would be a good way of putting them up to maybe having the future qualifiers on a kind of track like that. So you can get your feet wet just a little bit before you just totally pucker your ass cheek when you go into a full blown Supercross, because it's just way out of the realm of, oh fuck, this is scary.
But are you talking about entertainment or are you talking about growing the sport?
I'm talking about growing the sport.
All right. 2 different things, because there is zero infrastructure I have 3 clients right now that are trying to get their pro Supercross card and not one person can tell them how to do it. If you call AMA, they say call MX Sports. If you call MX Sports, they say call Feld. What the hell does Feld? Emails back. What the hell does Feld have to do on qualifying standards for a pro racer? They're an entertainment company. Why the hell would it be Feld's responsibility?
Yeah, no. It wouldn't be.
When you're talking about growing the sport, there's not a kid playing Pee Wee football. There's not a kid playing whatever the young baseball team, whatever that level is called, right? There's not one of those players that are out there that don't hope to make it to the NFL, the Major League Baseball, whatever it is. So that's where I get completely dumbfounded. We're sitting here talking in real terms right now. There is no infrastructure to get from A to C. You're an amateur trying to get to Supercross. Motocross is in the middle. You can be a very good amateur motocross racer and get a pro outdoor card, but you can't make it to the place that supposedly pays more money, Supercross. And this isn't a witch hunt on anybody.
Yeah.
I have tried to help these athletes figure it out. And literally everybody says, call the other guy. You call the other guy. And again, props to Feld. They say, we're an entertainment company. We can't say that you're capable of doing this. We assume that if you show up with a card, you can do what we built. But where is the infrastructure?
Yeah, it's
dumbfounding.
We're way digressing. But there's like a bubble of something that's happening. There's going to be a big catalyst of something to where, either the sport dies or the sport innovates in some catastrophic way and kind of be rebuilt from the ground up. That's kind of what we're watching, because it is stupid that even insiders don't even really know how to obtain this information on what to do. Even the rules or set guidelines that are always changing type crap. But
yep.
Do we have anything else we want to talk about before we? Will you guys brop with me? You guys want to
I
do
will.
that?
I will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, Chris, did you want to just take here? Maybe
What are you talking about,
edit
Johnny?
this smaller.
Don't edit it. Leave it in. Leave it in. Leave it in. What do we got going?
All right. So let's for the viewers and everybody try to make this super awkward. Hey, no, Cooksey, do you want to be the electric bike? And then no, I'm just kidding. You know, I was being a dick. I was being a dick. But let's all drop the valves because we're mixing ass and we're hauling
Drinking gas.
drinking gas. Let's prop it.
Stuff, Johnny.
Take his front wheel out. You know, if I ran into you, I'd actually and then I'd crash and then I'd be all flipping you off and then I'd go get some other bigger guys in the pits to be like, hey, that dude, you know, like 4 verse 1. That's
Good stuff, guys.
Awesome, Johnny. Way to go, coach.